Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trek Canon. For anybody who's been watching Star Trek for a while and thought about the Klingons, there's going to be some questions you have about them. One of which is probably going to be, where do they keep finding these corrupt Klingon politicians? Now, one would be remiss to think that Klingon society is based upon the code of warriors, warrior code, put forth by, who was it? Kahless the Unforgettable. And while that is true, what is the definition of honor when it comes to Klingon society? And why does it seem that most Klingon politicians that we've encountered in Star Trek canon always seem to be on some underhand stuff, kind of like those Starfleet admirals? But I guess to understand that, we're going to have to talk a little bit about Klingon culture because it's very different than human culture. See, Klingon culture is based on the concept of honor. But what do Klingons consider honor? What do they consider dishonor in a Klingon society? Thing about it is, it's kind of simple when you think about it. No matter what profession you have in Klingon society, right, to be honorable, your mission or your duty is to progress Klingon culture and dominance throughout the galaxy. So if that's what your purpose is, that's what your mission is, that's what your goal is, then in Klingon society, you have honor. But see, there's another aspect of Klingon society. Your honor also dictates how you're perceived and treated in Klingon society. It depends on whether or not you're able to hold certain jobs, able to serve in certain militaries, able to run certain houses, able to sit on the council, and yes, able to hold the position of chancellor. But here's the thing. Where did the concept of honor develop or come from in Klingon society? It is derived from this concept of the way of the warrior, and that was put forth by Kahless the Unforgettable. Everybody know Kahless, man. Emperor Kahless. Kahless is basically, Klingon Jesus God. And with these concepts developed by Kahless in the way of the warrior, he gave them a framework on how to conduct themselves and be honorable members of the Klingon society. But here's the thing about all metaphysical concepts. You see, because a metaphysical concept is dependent on the perception of the person interpreting it. So honor can take very different forms based on who's perceiving those acts in Klingon society. And eventually, people who develop what's called dishonor will be cast out, exiled, or even discommendated. When I was a kid and Worf got discommendated, side note, I was thinking to myself, how in the world does everybody always know that Worf got discommendated? They wasn't there. Word of mouth couldn't be that strong. And then we got to the age of social media, and now I totally understand. Now, from the religious aspect of honor and dishonor, right? The dishonorable go to Grethor, right? Where they're tortured and everything, by demons and, is ruled over by Feklar, right? Their version of Satan. And for people who do good, they go across the bars, man. They end up in Stovokor, part of the Black Fleet. Now, that whole thing is ruled by, of course, Kahless. By the way, everybody want to go to Stovokor. Nobody wants to get tortured for eternity in Great Thor. Now, the thing about Stovokor is that in Stovokor, man, they are battling for eternity. Everybody's drinking blood wine, enjoying themselves, telling great stories and singing, and nobody dies. And all the victories are won. But if you think about it, if you have an eternity of that, and you know that you are going to go into each battle with victory, then I would think even that would become stale to a Klingon. I don't know how that would be considered. When you think about, okay, I'm not even going to get into none of that. So now we know, in short of it, that Klingon society is built on basically how people perceive us, how people perceive our individual acts, how those acts contribute to the success and, conquering and domination of the Klingon Empire. You can see how everybody can kind of be on their own little type of thing to kind of develop that type of reputation. And reputation is exactly what Klingons strive for. So then, how do we end up with these politicians that's all jacked up? First, there was no chancellors featured in Star Trek, the original series, right? The first time we see a chancellor or even hear about something like that is in the Star Trek movies, and we go into it heavily in Star Trek, The Next Generation. And when you think about all of the people who have been appointed to the position of chancellor, right, you got to think to yourself, man, they always on some BS. Like think of Kempek, think of Gowron, Big Eyes himself, right? You thought Gowron was going to be a pretty cool cat, and that Picard made a good choice. But here he is sitting up there trying to discredit Martok and, and try so he could build his reputation right at the expense of the battle. You got Duras who trying to become chancellor, right? And he's straight working with the blood enemies of the Klingons, the Romulans. And don't even get me started on L'Rell from Discovery, because I don't consider that. Hell, the first time we get to see a true honorable Klingon chancellor was when it comes across with Martok. Now, that's what we're about to get into, because people seem to think that to sit on a council or to be a Klingon politician or to exist at all in Klingon society, you have to be a warrior. And although most Klingons are, ascribe to doing that, we know that they have Klingon scientists. We know that they have Klingon doctors and geneticists. Think of the Klingon scientists who adapted the augment virus. And yes, we have Klingon politicians. So if you think about it, all these particular groups and professions inside the Klingon Empire is trying to do something to build their reputation in an honorable, or in what they consider an honorable way, to enhance and the domination of the Klingon Empire. So of course we're gonna have sometimes where that's not gonna be deemed something honorable and yet very dishonorable. So here we go with the politicians. If you think about it, politicians and the military, they both fight but for different reasons. The military fights for military dominance. That's what they were ordered to do. Politicians fight for resources, how those resources are applied and allocated, and yes, how those and who those resources are benefit and who those resources can be withheld from. Okay, side note, because I know people are going to be asking, there is a difference between the Hall of Heroes and the Hall of Warriors. Okay, the Hall of Heroes is on Takor or something like that, and the Hall of Warriors sits on Kronos. All right. Now, as far as the importance goes, which one is held more valuable in Klingon society? I'm gonna tell you this: the Hall of Warriors, although it sits on Kronos, they lack a few people. Yeah, they got Chang, they got Gal Ryan, got people like that. Think of that for a second. They got people like that. But in the Hall of Heroes, you have Darhar Masters, right? Yeah. So yeah, think of that. Now, getting back to what I was talking about. Now, the first leader of the Klingon Empire wasn't a politician. It was the Emperor Kahless himself. And we already said and know about the exploits of Kahless and why he's considered the ultimate warrior. I don't know why I just seen Kahless with the ultimate warrior face paint. By the way, that still would look awesome with the ultimate warrior face paint, man, carrying his battle left, that modified battle left. You can't tell me that's not smooth. Oh, everybody knows my train go off the rack sometimes. But anyway, so the position of chancellor is a political position. It is a politically appointed position while they await the return of Emperor Kahless, right? Which they covered in that awesome episode in Star Trek: The Next Generation. So basically, all the people who are fighting to become chancellor of the Klingon Empire, right, are doing things in a way that's political. They're not doing it in what we would consider a Klingon honorable way of the warrior aspect of it. They are doing it in the Klingon honorable way of politicians aspect. And a lot of times that can be viewed dishonorably by not only Klingon society, but Klingon, the warriors in the Klingon culture, and the people outside, like Starfleet. So in situations like that, what happens when a person has displayed so much dishonor, or as we should say, has done things that they thought were in the best interest of the dominance of the Klingon Empire, right? But people's perceptions of that has messed up their reputation to a point where it can't be fixed, right? Now, these people are usually executed in the Klingon Empire, or they're exiled, or they're at worst discommendated, which means everybody basically says, we don't know you at all. You can't come here, none of that. We don't want to talk to you. You basically do not exist. And upon death, those people are supposed to go to Grethor. Now, the thing about it is that if you think about it, you can actually get out of Grethor. How do you get out of Grethor? How does a person who's been dishonored and ends up in Grethor get out? Well, a family member has to, or a clan member, or a house member has to perform and act so great and act so just like so beyond honorable, man, so like just defiant, man, that the Kahless himself be like, yo, man, that was was all right, man. You can go and get your person out of Grethor, man. Y'all can exist forever in Stovo Core. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And as always, peace, recycle, and say the whales. You guys be cool.